Welcome back to another Professional Picks College Basketball Conference Preview. Today we're going to be looking at the SEC, and then in a couple days I'll be releasing the Pac-12 video as well. We're doing two this week because I fell a little bit behind. And make sure you guys like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Even if you don't agree with my rankings, it's great information to have with there being more transfers than ever. But with that, we'll jump right into it. As always, we have our partnership with Prize Picks. You can see on the left, they'll match your first deposit up to $100 using our promo code PROPICS. And this is a great opportunity because Prize Picks specializes in daily fantasy, but they also include college sports props, which you can't find on, say, FanDuel or DraftKings. And just for example, you have the Flex Play, which is like built-in promo. Even if you get one of your entries wrong, you can still make a little bit of your money back on, say, a 2-leg, but if you have 3 legs plus, you'll actually profit even if one of your legs misses. And then the power play there is your traditional parlay. Once again, the promo code is PROPICS, as you can see on the left. That will jump right into our rankings, our top 10 rankings, just like we did for the ACC. Starting off with Vanderbilt. Don't feel great about them. I think this position is really where the conference drops off in comparison to the top teams. Could have also gone with Texas A&M or Mizzou here, even though I'm not really a fan of any of these rosters. One of the main reasons I picked Vanderbilt is because I really like Scottie Pippen Jr. He really blew up last year, and a lot of people have him projected as the conference player of the year, but I do think some of that's due to the rest of the roster not being that great, and he just gets so many opportunities. Also, Liam Robbins is recovering from an ankle injury, and if he doesn't play as much as anticipated or doesn't play as well, I think their ranking could drop very easily because I think between Scottie Pippen Jr. and Liam Robbins, these are definitely their two best players. And that kind of reminds me of like that Minnesota team last year with Marcus Carr and Liam Robbins. Just so reliant on those two guys and not really getting enough production from the rest of the team. Overall, undersized backcourt with Scottie Pippen Jr. and Rodney Chapman, both about 6 foot, 6'1". Don't really have any bench depth. They even have Terran Frank starting at power forward, who played sparingly for TCU last year. Just don't like the players that much. And the only problem was I didn't really prefer another roster over them. I just gave them the nod here at number 10 because of Scottie Pippen Jr. and Liam Robbins, but I do not think this team will contend in the SEC this year. Next, we have LSU, who could have been a little bit higher, but they're definitely going to be hurting without Adam Miller's injury. They now have Eric Gaines starting instead, who could also end up being Brandon Murray, the freshman shooting guard, and then that would bump Pinson over to the point guard, even though they're more so scorers than they are playmakers. Brandon Murray's the 81st overall ranked recruit, so I think they'll probably go with Gaines here, take a little bit of experience, and develop Brandon Murray more off the bench. This team has some potential. Milwaukee Wilkinson, I think, will really step up this year, although I don't know if he's going to be a positive at the power or the small forward position and compared to some of the other rosters. Darius Days can score a lot, but he's kind of a liability on the defensive end. It's like only 6'7" at the power forward spot, with some teams having some really physically imposing power forwards in this conference. And then you're also leaning on Efton Reed, the 26 overall recruit or freshman, to basically provide all your rim protection. There's just a lot of what ifs with this team. I would have liked them a lot more with Adam Miller. Xavier Pinson's going to have to shoot a lot, and he doesn't have the best field goal percentage either. I don't think that efficiency is going to change much with maybe even a bigger role on this LSU roster. Tougher to read because I think Milwaukee Wilkinson can really step up, and I don't know what to expect fully from the center position, but I think they're pretty solid here at the 9th spot. Probably middle of the pack of the conference. Not really going to contend for the number 1 team or the number 1 position, but they do have some talent. Ole Miss, Has some small guards, but a good front court to protect the rim. Niger Brooks from Miami, real solid 7-footer. Jamin Brakefield from Duke, where he didn't play too much, and he's transferred here to play. He's definitely going to start. I think we'll definitely see his numbers improve from what he had with the Blue Devils. And then Jarkel Joyner is definitely going to lead this team in scoring. Their senior shooting guard, been with Ole Miss for a while now, averaged 15.6 points per game in 2019. So I think you could see kind of return to that form for him. But they're definitely going to miss Devontae Schuler. He led their team last year with about 15 points per game. Overall, love the transfers they brought in between Brakefield, Brooks, and yeah, that was about it. Ruffin's the freshman coming in. He's 5'11". Don't know if he's going to provide a ton on the defensive end, but he'll be a solid playmaker. And then you got Luis Rodriguez returning too. So it's definitely some good things with this roster. Not really sold on their bench, and they're not really going to be able to shoot the ball that well. There's not really a guy on this team that I would consider a plus 3-point shooter. So I think that's going to kind of limit their ceiling this year. As for the Gators, I don't like the roster too much, but there's just too much experience and a lot of proven players, at least, although I don't think they have a ton of potential. For example, McKissick, he's a transfer from UMKC, so I definitely expect those numbers to go down a bit. He's also a guard. He's not really going to fill a small forward role, so I think that kind of hurts them overall, just having those three guards who aren't the most efficient, really. Myron Jones averaged 15 points per game with Penn State, but didn't really shoot the ball that well. And then Tyree Appleby is probably your most reliable guard coming back from last year. Also, CJ Felder is from Boston College. Those are okay numbers. Obviously, their team wasn't that great last year, so he had some opportunities. I don't really know if I'm going to expect too much more from him this season with the Gators. They're going to be heavily reliant on Colin Castleton coming back. He needs to put up all conference type performance for this team to really get past the middle of the pack. Most of this ratings due to all their experience. Definitely score the ball, rebound a little bit, but I just don't love the potential. Don't think they could really overperform, and they don't really have too much depth beyond their starters. This is where I think it gets really interesting. I love Auburn's team this year. Got Wendell Green. He's a transfer from Eastern Kentucky, so you're probably going to expect a little bit less from him. Although Alan Flanagan is going to return about midseason from an Achilles injury, so I think he'll jump back into the starting lineup, and that'll shore things up a little bit. Just don't know how much you're going to get from Alan Flanagan, although he did average 14.3 points per game last year. So he's an all-conference type player who you can get back, and you pair that with the number 6 recruit at power forward. And then you have Walker Kessler, who really came on at the late last season with UNC. I think they have a great front court. And on top of that, you have Jalen Williams, 6-man, average about 10 and 5. Another post you could bring in. I don't think a lot of teams can match up with that. The reason I have him here at number 6 and not higher, though, is just because they're inexperienced, starting a lot of sophomores, starting a freshman as well. So I think it's going to be key when Alan Flanagan comes back, if he could play as well as he did last year. I think this team could bounce into the top 3 even in this conference. Number 5, I have Mississippi State. Some analysts like them a lot. I think they're going to be an underrated squad this year, though. Got Rocket Watts from Michigan State. He needs to play a lot better. You got Iverson Molinar returning. Put up great numbers for them last year. DJ Jeffries from Memphis. Another really solid player. Score a little bit, rebound a little bit. He's a good small forward. Definitely fills that role on this team. And then I think Garrison Brooks is really interesting at power forward. I think his numbers will increase. The front court got a little log jams in UNC between him and Bacot, and then Kessler last year too. Just had so many options, and they also had Daron Sharp, Garrison Brooks came here to get a little more opportunities. He's definitely going to score more, and I think he'll even play better. And then Tolu Smith, another player I think who's going to play great. Showed a lot of development from his freshman to his sophomore season. So expect him to maybe even improve a little bit, but he doesn't really have to with these new transfers that came in. I think the starting lineup's extremely solid. They're able to rebound and score from every level. It will just probably take a little bit of time with 3 starters being transfers, and also with Watts and Smith expected to miss about the first 3 weeks to a month. But they do have other transfers who can fill those roles, such as Shaquille Moore, providing depth at point guard. I think Auburn and Mississippi State are 2 teams with a lot of potential to crack the top 4 teams in this conference. I think it's tiered by the top 4, and then it goes 5 and 6 between Auburn and Mississippi State with the potential, and then kind of the rest after that. So now we're going to jump into our top 4. I think these are all teams that could potentially win the conference, but I still ranked them according to just their overall strength and where I believe they're going to end up falling. So number 4, we have Alabama. It's a little bit lower than where other analysts have them. And I initially, looking at them, I wanted them to be my favorites to win the conference, but there's just a little bit too much uncertainty in the post for me. They're losing Herb Jones, who was Conference Player of the Year last year. In replacement of that, they're going to be starting a freshman. Number 34 recruit should be solid. We'll see what we're going to end up getting, though. Because once you get past those like top 10, 15, there could be a lot more variability in what you're going to have to expect from a freshman. Noah Gurley, 6'8", power forward, small forward from Furman. It's definitely going to be solid. I really wanted Illinois to get him, but Alabama snagged him in the portal. He'll provide some stability in the post. But other than Gurley and Bediako, it's hard for me to see this post play doing that great, especially when we're just looking at, say, like Auburn with Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler. I feel like that's great advantage for Auburn in the post. But the reason Alabama has their number 4 ranking for me is they have a 3-headed monster at the guard. Jaden Shackelford averaged 14 last year. Quinterly averaged 13. And then they have J.D. Davison, the number 12th overall recruit coming in. So I think he can end up joining those other 2 guards in the starting lineup. They're going to end up trying to go small, shoot a lot of threes, run a lot. I love J.D. Davison, though. I think he has to start on this team. It'll definitely be a smaller lineup, but if they could rely on perimeter shooting and getting out in the run, I think that could be great for this roster. Namari Burnett getting injured is a tough loss for this team because he could really fill that position at small forward, shooting guard, kind of been a Swiss Army knife type of guy for them. But I love the potential when all 3 guards are in, but they're still lacking the depth and interior play for me to put them in the top 3. Then I have Tennessee, always one of my favorites in the SEC, extremely high IQ team. Kennedy Chandler is the number 1 ranked point guard, number 8 overall recruit. They're going to have him starting. He's not going to try to score a ton, but he's just always going to make the right play on the defensive end or making the right pass, just hitting a clutch shot, taking the right shot. It's a very, very solid player. And then the rest of the lineup's kind of interesting. Other than John Fulkerson, you could pencil him in at center. They could go with Brandon Huntley Hatfield, try to go a little bit bigger depending on who they're playing. He's the 25th ranked recruit, freshman. But they could also move Josiah Jordan James to power forward. If they want to start Justin Powell, the transfer they got from Auburn, who could shoot the ball great, 6'6", also rebounds a little bit. I think that might be their best potential lineup for what they're given, because on paper, Josiah Jordan James, Victor Bailey, Kennedy Chandler, they're all very athletic players, but I think they struggle to shoot the ball a little bit. So you might want to throw Powell in there. And then Vescovi could even start shooting guard over Victor Bailey. But I like him coming off the bench, being a solid player that you can have in that second unit. Doesn't do anything particularly exceptional, but he's just overall very solid. Then you have Olivier Nahumwa, who could even start power forward if they want to lean for the experience, but I just think Brandon Huntley Hatfield or even moving Josiah Jordan James there just provides a lot more talent on the floor. Extremely deep Tennessee roster as usual, lacks a scoring leader like they did last year. I think this will hurt them down the stretch because they always seem a little bit unsure and not really planned out how they want these end of game close situations to go. Lost in the first round of the national tournament last year. And because of that, I think Rick Barnes is kind of on the hot seat. He's recruited great. He's put great talent on the floor, but they've kind of underperformed in the recent years. And I think this could be the year that they get over the hump. Like I mentioned, always one of my favorites. They could end up being in that 4th spot, flipped with Alabama, but just with their depth, I gave the nod to Tennessee here in number 3. Arkansas, a really different team than what we saw out of them last year, but Eric Musselman's building a culture here. They've shown improvement in every season he's been there, and they're 1 game away from being in the Final Four where they lost to Baylor. I think Staniel Amude will end up starting at point guard or at one of the guard spots over Chris Likes. He's a 6'6" guard who averaged 21 points, 7 boards, and 3 assists. He honestly will probably even move him to the small forward spot just because he's big and could rebound the ball. That'll probably put Node over to point guard. Chris Likes is only 5'7" point guard. Didn't really shoot the ball that efficiently, but he passes well, like rebounds even at his size. I think he'd be a great spark plug to have off the bench. This is just the projected lineups, and he's a senior, so I gave him the nod. Obviously, Node is a very solid guard, returner. He should maybe even see an increase in his production. Devontae Davis was a very solid freshman. My only problem with him is that he doesn't shoot the ball particularly well, but that's why this Arkansas team is so interesting because they have multiple posts who can really stretch the floor and just make this team multi-dimensional. They have a lot of guys who fill different roles. For example, they have Connor Vanover, 7'3", center, who's going to be rotating with Jalen Williams. And Vanover, even at 7'3", he can shoot the 3-pointer a little bit. It's not particularly strong, but when you're that tall, you're still obviously a decent rim protector. They also have Jackson Robinson, who was 67th nationally. It's like a shooting guard, so another solid player that they'll be able to bring off the bench with Chris Likes probably. So then they got like about 8 guys deep who are really, really solid. Jalen Williams' stats don't look great on paper, but he really came on at the end of the season as well and was a big piece in their tournament run. Just overall, I really like the way this team plays. They stick to their style of basketball and try to speed up the game, cause turnovers, shoot threes. They got a lot of guys who can do a little bit of everything. So I think they're a solid 2 for me. I could see Alabama or Tennessee passing them up, but just the overall depth and talent, I have Arkansas 2. And then couldn't be more obvious who the number 1 team I have in this conference is, but it's Kentucky. They have the most talent. They also are not your traditional Kentucky roster. They're the oldest team that they've had since the 1957-58 season. Also, if you just look at my notes there, their bench, they have about like 5 guys who could even potentially be starters on other rosters, which is just insane. Severe Willer averaged 7.4 assists at Georgia last year. So he's just a great player to have to really get this thing running, make guys easy shots. Ty Washington, number 14th ranked recruit. He's more of a point guard, so I feel like they're going to go that 2-point guard route, provide a lot of playmaking and just outside shooting ability. And then Kellen Grady, great transfer from Davidson. Calipari really knocked the transfer portal out of the park this offseason. And then you have Keon Brooks returning, 10 points, about 7 boards. Very solid power forward. Don't particularly love him, but he's showing improvement each season, and he'll be a very solid starter for them. And then Oscar Shibwe, really surprised me last year by leaving West Virginia. I thought they could have been a national contender had he stayed, and he really left a big hole for them in the post. But coming to Kentucky, that provides you can see his numbers were 8.5 points and 7.8 boards. And that was only about through 10 games last year. But in his freshman year, he almost averaged a double double. So I expect that to return to hit his freshman season form, especially with some more minutes on this Kentucky roster. They just have so much talent. I think it will. The only problem is it's going to take a little bit of time. If they're going to lose a few games, it's probably going to be early since almost everybody's new and playing different roles than last year. For example, Davion Mintz is going to come off the bench, but he was a starter for them. CJ Frederick was a starter for Iowa, but he's also going to come off the bench. Bryce Hopkins is a big riser, freshman who is probably going to play more of a small forward spot, but he can do a little bit of everything. Damian Collins, center, number 15 in the country. He'll rotate with Brooks and Sheboy. They just have an answer for everything: rebounding, shooting, playmaking, and experience. And that brings us to our tiers here. I think the number one tier is legit contenders who could all easily win the conference. Tier two is teams that I think have potential to get into that top three, top four spots, but probably won't win the conference, but I wouldn't be like extremely surprised. Tier three, solid teams, but they just don't have all the pieces that I'm looking for. And I think once you get to tier four, the number 10 team and beyond in the conference, it really drops off heavily. So I won't be looking at too many of those lower rated teams. You could also put Mizzou and Texas A&M in the number 10 spot. I don't think it matters too much. But as always, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Let me know who you're taking in the rankings. Just let me know if you have any insight as well. I think I have a pretty decent grasp on this conference. There's just a lot of different changes, obviously in roster complexion with guys even moving within the conference, but just overall talent wise and kind of leaning into experience too. I like the top 6 teams in this conference a lot and feel like they will all end up making the national tournament at the end of the year. Let me know what conference you guys want next. I'm leaning towards the Pac-12, but there's only about 2 weeks left, so it's going to be Pac-12 and then one more after that. Good luck this year, and hope you guys enjoyed this video.